You're asleep, completely out, face in the pillow, drooling, probably snoring. Zero awareness of anything happening around you. Now change the setting. You're not in your bedroom, you're in a tent. A thin sheet of nylon, embarrassingly thin, is the only thing between you and a forest full of animals that could kill you without breaking a sweat. Lions, bears, wolves, leopards. Creatures that can hear your heartbeat from across a clearing, smell you from a mile away, and see perfectly in pitch darkness while you lie there with your eyes closed, doing absolutely nothing. And yet, you wake up in the morning, every single time. Why? Think about this seriously for a second. A sleeping human is just meat, slow meat, quiet meat, meat that can't fight back, can't run, can barely even register that something is happening until it's already over. You'd expect predators to be circling campsites every night. An easy, predictable, defenseless meal. But they don't. They almost never do. And the reason isn't one thing. It's never just one thing. It's several layers stacked on top of each other, each one stranger than the last, and together they reveal something about the relationship between humans and the wild that goes back further than civilization, further than farming, further than anything we normally think of as history. Let's start with the one that sounds like an ego trip, but is actually just biology. You are terrifying. Not you specifically, sitting there right now. You're fine, normal, not particularly frightening. But humans as a species to predators, we are genuinely, deeply, evolutionarily scary. And not in the way you'd expect. We don't have claws. We're not fast. We're not particularly strong for our size. We can barely see in the dark. On paper, we're kind of a disaster as an animal. And yet, in 2019, researchers at UC Santa Cruz ran an experiment that proved something biologists had suspected for years. They played recordings of ordinary human voices near mountain lions in the Santa Cruz Mountains. Just people talking. Normal conversation. Nothing aggressive. The mountain lions ran. They fled at the same rate they fled from barking dogs. In some cases, faster. These are animals that take down full-grown deer routinely. Animals that can drag a kill uphill. Absolute machines of predatory efficiency. And they heard a human conversation and bolted. But here's what made the study genuinely remarkable. The pumas didn't just avoid the sound. They abandoned food, kills they had already made, meals they were actively eating. They left their food on the ground and moved away from the human voices. For a predator, that's an enormous cost. The calories burned making that kill don't get replenished. And they did it anyway because being near humans felt worse than going hungry. That wasn't an isolated finding. Lions in South Africa's Kruger National Park reduce their movement in areas with higher human activity. Tigers in India give wide berths to villages, even when those villages sit in the middle of prime hunting territory. Jaguars in the Amazon have shifted their movement patterns to avoid places where humans are regularly present. None of these animals are physically incapable of attacking a person. They've simply decided at a species level, over thousands of generations, that being near us isn't worth the risk. And the reason for that decision is one of the most brutal facts in natural history. We broke them. Humans have been actively hunting and killing large predators for roughly 2 million years. We hunted mammoths out of existence. We wiped megafauna off entire continents. Giant sloths, woolly rhinos, saber-toothed cats, cave bears, species that survived ice ages, vanished within centuries of humans arriving in their territories. In North America alone, we hunted wolves to near extinction across the entire landmass. We eliminated mountain lions from the entire eastern half of the continent. We killed predators so systematically and for so long that the ones alive today are descended from the animals that were most careful around us. That's not a metaphor. That's natural selection. The bold ones approached our camps. They got killed. The cautious ones kept their distance. They survived. They reproduced. They passed that caution to their offspring. Over thousands of years, that caution became biological. It became instinct. It became the default setting of every large predator that shares space with humans on this planet. So when a leopard picks up your scent in the dark, somewhere deep in its nervous system, a very old alarm fires, not a conscious thought. An inherited signal ancient, wired in that says, be careful around that thing, don't engage, move on. That alarm has been passed down from every ancestor of that leopard that survived an encounter with us. Now let's talk about your smell. You've probably never thought about how you smell to a predator. You're surrounded by other humans all the time, so you've normalized it completely. But to an animal with a nose 10 to 100,000 times more sensitive than yours, you are broadcasting an enormous, detailed, and deeply strange chemical signal. Bears have a sense of smell roughly 7 times stronger than a bloodhound's. Wolves can detect scents from nearly 2 miles away. Big cats have a specialized organ in the roof of their mouth that essentially lets them taste the air and analyze chemical information at a level we can barely imagine. When these animals encounter a sleeping human, they get flooded with data. And most of that data is just wrong. You smell like synthetic fabric, nylon, polyester, chemicals from the manufacturing process. You smell like processed food, whatever you ate hours ago, the snacks in your bag. You smell like soap and shampoo and sunscreen and insect repellent, a cocktail of artificial compounds that has no equivalent anywhere in the natural world. Underneath all of that, you smell like a primate, but you don't smell like prey. A predator's hunting instinct isn't a vague desire to attack anything that moves. It's a finely calibrated system, tuned to very specific animals. A wolf's chase response triggers when it sees the movement patterns of deer and elk. A lion's attack mechanism activates based on the shape, speed, and scent of animals it has hunted thousands of times. You don't fit the pattern. You're not in the system. You're an anomaly. And anomalies don't trigger aggression. They trigger caution. Then there's fire. One of the most underrated things humans ever figured out. Fire produces a near universal fear response across virtually all land animals. This isn't learned behavior, it's innate, it's ancient. Animals that feared fire survived wildfires by running. Animals that didn't fear fire burned. Over millions of years, the fear got baked into the code. Laboratory-raised animals that have never been near fire in their lives will still show avoidance behavior at the smell of smoke. It runs that deep. Humans figured out fire somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, and for most of that time, sleeping next to a fire has been standard procedure, not just for warmth, not just for cooking, because it works as a broadcast. A campfire sends a signal into the surrounding darkness. Something dangerous is here, something that controls fire, something that should be avoided. And here's the thing about controlling fire that makes it uniquely terrifying to other animals. No other species does it. No other creature on this planet has ever figured out how to create, maintain, and direct fire. For every other animal on Earth, fire is a disaster, something that comes without warning and destroys everything in its path. And then here's this one species that sits calmly in the middle of it, feeding it, keeping it alive, sleeping beside it like it's nothing. From a predator's perspective, that's deeply wrong. That's an animal doing something that no animal should be able to do. And anything that breaks the rules, that dramatically gets avoided. The predators got that message, and they've been getting it so long that they don't even need to decode it anymore. It just triggers avoidance automatically. We figured that out before we figured out farming. Before pottery, before writing, before architecture. Fire first. The single best decision our species ever made. Now let's tackle the biggest myth about predators. Because movies have spent decades getting this completely wrong. Predators are not reckless. The image of the apex predator as this fearless, unstoppable killing machine that attacks anything within range is fiction. In reality, large predators are extraordinarily careful about what they engage with. Because they have to be. A lion doesn't have health insurance. A wolf doesn't get sick days. One serious injury, a broken leg, a deep bite wound, a damaged eye can mean a slow death by starvation. In the wild, injuries don't get treated. They either heal while the animal still has to hunt and eat, or they don't heal and the animal dies. Every single decision about whether to engage with something is a survival calculation. Is the caloric value worth the risk of injury? Is this prey familiar enough that I know how it will behave? Is the chance of success high enough to justify the energy? A sleeping human fails this calculation in multiple ways. First, unfamiliarity. A predator is most confident attacking prey it knows intimately. It has watched a zebra run hundreds of times. It knows the blind spots, the kick patterns, the panic behavior. It does not know how a human will respond. Humans are wildly unpredictable. We might wake up screaming. We might have tools. We might have other humans nearby who respond. For a predator trying to minimize risk, that level of uncertainty is a massive red flag. Second, size. When humans stand up, we're actually pretty big. Upright. Tall. Our bipedal posture makes us appear larger and more imposing than prey animals of equivalent weight. Standing upright is what gorillas do when they want to intimidate. It's what bears do when they want to look threatening. A creature that walks around like that all the time, as its default mode, reads as inherently assertive. Third, and this might matter most, why bother? There are almost always easier options. A predator with a healthy territory has access to prey it knows, prey it's comfortable hunting, prey that fits its biological template. Going after something strange and potentially dangerous when there's a perfectly available deer nearby makes no survival sense. The risk-reward math just doesn't work. Here's something else that almost never comes up. Your sleep is not as deep as you think. This is one of the more astonishing things about human biology. We sleep in cycles, dropping into deep, slow-wave sleep, then coming back up into lighter stages, including REM sleep, where the brain is actually quite active. During those lighter stages, your brain remains surprisingly responsive to the environment. External sounds still get processed. Unfamiliar noises are more likely to break through than familiar ones. Scientists call this the sentinel function of sleep. Even while resting, your brain maintains a partial watch. It filters sensory input and flags things that seem unusual or threatening. A twig snapping loudly, the sound of a large animal pushing through brush, a shift in the air that comes with something big approaching. These things can pull you toward waking faster than you'd expect. This wasn't accidental. The ancestors who slept too deeply, who were completely unresponsive to nighttime threats, were the ones who didn't wake up at all. The light sleepers, the ones who could go from unconscious to on their feet in seconds, survived and reproduced. Over hundreds of thousands of years, human sleep got tuned to stay just light enough to respond. You feel completely helpless when you're asleep, but you're actually running a fairly sophisticated early warning system. And then there's the group. Humans almost never camp alone. We travel in groups. We sleep in groups. And those groups respond collectively. Predators understand group dynamics at a deep level because their prey also forms groups. A wildebeest in the center of a herd is far safer than one at the edge. A fish in the middle of a school is harder to target than one that's been separated. Predators don't just attack, they hunt for separation. They look for the isolated individual, the one that fell behind, the one that got cut off. A camp full of sleeping humans is a group. And when one member wakes up and makes noise, the others wake up too. That collective response is deeply unappealing to a predator trying to make a clean, low-risk kill. Now let's be honest, because this would be irresponsible otherwise. None of this means you're untouchable. Attacks happen. They follow a consistent pattern, and almost every documented case involves circumstances that have broken the normal rules. A predator that's injured and can no longer hunt its normal prey. A predator that's starving because its habitat has been destroyed. A predator that's been fed by tourists and has lost its inherited wariness. Or a predator that's simply old and desperate, past its physical prime. The lions of Tsavo are the most famous example. In 1898, 2 male lions attacked and killed dozens of railway workers over about 9 months. But what's often left out is that both lions were unusual. Both were maneless, which is atypical. One had severe dental damage that likely made its normal prey much harder to hunt. These weren't representative of how lions behave. They were exceptions created by desperation. The Champawat tiger, responsible for an estimated 436 deaths in India and Nepal, was later found to have been shot in the mouth at some earlier point, shattering its canine teeth. It could no longer hunt its natural prey effectively. The pattern repeats. Something broke. The normal calculation changed. Desperation overrode the inherited caution, which means the rule holds almost universally when the ecosystem is intact, the predator is healthy, and the humans haven't scrambled the normal signals. There's one last layer, and I saved it for the end because it's the most mind-bending part. We have been so effective at making the natural world afraid of us that it's now causing problems we didn't expect. That same 2019 study didn't just show that pumas fear humans, it showed that the fear cascades through the entire food web. When pumas avoid areas where humans are active, deer in those areas face less predation. Deer populations grow. Those deer overgraze the vegetation. Meanwhile, medium-sized predators, coyotes, bobcats, foxes, also reduce their presence near humans, which means the rodent populations they normally control start expanding. Everything shifts, and it shifts because of us. Because the fear we've generated over thousands of years radiates outward through the ecosystem like a signal. We change the behavior of every predator on the continent without ever directly interacting with most of them, just by being there, just by being the thing that evolution told them to fear. One species, one inherited fear, rippling across the entire living world. The most dangerous animal on this planet is the one that figured out fire before it figured out anything else. The one that's been reshaping ecosystems not through what it eats, but through what it makes other things afraid to eat. The one that sleeps light, travels in groups, and carries 10,000 generations of successful survival coded into its nervous system. That's you. That's what you are. So next time you're lying in a tent in the middle of nowhere, listening to the sounds beyond the nylon wall, and you feel that small pulse of ancient anxiety, that's fine. That feeling kept your ancestors alive. But the thing outside the tent, it's not coming in. It knows better.